Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello and welcome to the latest episode. It is Friday, the 24th of April, 2026, and I hope you're well. Thank you for joining me. Now, did you listen right to the very end of the last episode? I included a clip of me testing the microphone with a siren sounding in the background because that's normally what happens the minute I press go on the microphone when I'm recording from the plot. So this evening, I thought I'd record at home in the quiet. I've got all the windows shut, so we shouldn't have any wasps in here. That's always quite disconcerting when I'm trying to concentrate. So I hope you've had a good week. What a week we've had in the south of England. It has been gloriously sunny. Every day has been absolutely beautiful. It's been really hot. It takes its time getting going, but by midday it's really baking and all the pots absolutely everywhere are drying out. So I'm watering like mad at home. The good news is that I have found my hori knife. I left it on a job last week. I wasn't entirely sure which job it was on. I had a feeling I knew, and I found it today exactly where I'd left it, so that was great. Now, if you haven't heard of the hori knife before, I think it's a Japanese knife, and I've had mine for a few years now. The first one I was actually given was not a Niwaki one. Now, this is not an advert and I'm not sponsored by them, but honestly, Niwaki do the best tools ever. And I think their snips are the best in the world. Niwaki make a hori knife and it is absolutely amazing. So when my first one, which wasn't Niwaki, actually broke on a job, I went and bought a Niwaki one and I haven't looked back since, and they are incredible. And it's kind of an extension of my hand now. I use it all of the time, every single day, pretty much. I've been absolutely bereft without it this week. And they are amazing. And I use it for absolutely everything now. Literally everything. They are incredible. So, some news from the plot. This morning, very excitingly, I found 2 dahlia shoots coming on 2 separate plants this morning. I was so excited. I've taken some photos and I'm going to text Richard later, Richard Bailey, my dahlia mentor, and let him know, because I left the dahlias out over the winter. First time I've ever done it, and it was a huge gamble. So I've got over 70 plants, most of which have come from Richard. So if I had lost them, it would have been absolutely devastating, and he would have been probably really cross with me. So thank goodness 2 of them, at least 2 out of 70 have made it. And I'm sure that's just the very start. They're all very, very big plants. Really big tubers, and they did get mulched, and it wasn't really a tough winter. We did have a very, very cold snap for about a week, but that was pretty much it. And I was so relieved to see those shoots this morning. I can't tell you. Now, last year when I was starting out, Richard gave me a load of dahlias and I had them all in trays. They were all in the spare room. And it was absolute chaos because they all had to be unpacked and unloaded onto different trays and then watered and kept warm. And it was just absolutely mental. So that's why I decided to leave them outside this year, because when you've got 70 and not very much space, it is a logistical nightmare to deal with them. So yes, it's a gamble to leave them outside, but if the worst case scenario had happened, I could always have got more cuttings. Not the same as having the big established plants, but it's never the end of the world. And I would have had the growing space to put annuals in. But thank goodness they have made an appearance. So that is amazing. The sweet peas are doing fine. They got planted out last week. They look a little bit shell shocked, I have to say. And I am watering them every day just to settle them in. I'm sure I remember them looking shell shocked last year. A bit of a shock to go from their cardboard crates into cardboard in the ground. And the chickens are looking at them very enviously, like they really want to eat them. So I have to make absolutely sure that the netting doesn't blow away or that any boards don't come down so that nobody can get to them. I have finally bought a bath plug for the bath that I salvaged from somebody a couple of years ago. I also got a headlamp bulb, but I haven't put that in yet. But the plug has gone in, and I'm now collecting the dirty duck water from their washing up bowls. They do have a paddling pool as well, but that one is, I'm not going to physically be able to lift that. So that just gets tipped down the slope and it kind of stops at a barrier, and then it slowly percolates through and waters the sweet peas. So that will carry on as normal, but the plug is for the washing up bowls outside their front door. So I'm very proud of myself for that. And hopefully, as I say, hopefully I will end up with some usable water and not just a really filthy pile of disgusting sludge that attracts flies. That would be the worst case scenario. Now I'm down to about 300 litres of water in IBC1. This is not good news at all, and we haven't had rain for ages, so it's not surprising. And I do still get through quite a bit of water. I've got some apple trees up on the concrete outside the feed room, and they need a bit of TLC as well as some bits in tubs and just random stuff. I try not to have any tubs up there because it was so dry last year. But I do like to have a bit of colour when I turn up. I like things to look pretty. I know it's a field and it's going to be full of flowers, but it's nice to have something pretty when you turn up. It just brightens my day a little bit. But I have to be careful not to water things too much. It's really only the ducks that are a problem. The chickens hardly get through any water. They really don't, but the ducks are just a nightmare. I'm only watering things that have been newly planted on the field. So that's the climbing roses are the last things to go in, and the rugosa roses, the Japanese anemones, those disastrous scabious, which a few of them have completely snuffed it and will have to come out. Anything that's been transplanted recently, and everybody else just has to manage. Now, the great thing about the perennials is that they've been in, some of them, for a couple of years now, although some of them got transplanted in the autumn, and they seem absolutely fine. Yes, the surface of the soil is quite dry where there's no mulch down, but if you dig down a couple of centimetres, everything is fine, and they've got a really good root structure. So I have given the new perennials that I put in as plugs in the autumn, they've had, I think, a sprinkling of water, but really not very much, because the annuals are going to take quite a lot of it when they get up there. No further sign of that rabbit that I was telling you about last week. I did actually find I found some netting in a bag in one of the feed rooms, and I ended up making like a little mini tunnel, just draped the netting over very quickly. I actually used a couple of those massive 8-foot hazel poles that I told you about that I couldn't make a wigwam out of because they were too big. They got repurposed, and I've just stretched them between the fence panels, poked the ends in the ground, and then draped this netting over the top just to kind of deter anybody from having a nibble. But so far, touch wood, nobody's touched them, and no one's touched the peas, which is amazing. So that's fine. Now, news from the greenhouse. Well, it's mental in the greenhouse. I like to have things ordered. If I had my own way, I'd have everybody going in alphabetical order. That would be my preference, because then it would be so easy to find everybody. Alternatively, I'd do it all by date order, and I'd know what got started first. Instead of which, it's an absolute mix of everybody at different stages doing different things on different shelves and different trays and all the rest of it. I'm trying to keep things that are similar close to each other, but it is proving impossible because they're in and out. Some of them are in, some of them are out. They're all doing different things. Now, the ones that I potted on the other day, which I can't remember whether I told you about this in the last episode. I don't think I did. I had a day of potting on, and that has been the snaps, the agrostemma, the ami, the panicum, the status, and the orlia. They've all been potted on. It was quite quick, actually. The ones in the soil blocks, really terrible germination. So I definitely think I'm not going to do that again unless I go and buy one of those bigger soil blocks. But I'm really not convinced as a trial. So things that were in trays, 100% germination. In fact, some of the trays I got 25 seedlings out when I'd only written on a piece of paper that I'd put 20 in. So I don't quite know what happened there. Could have been my eyesight. But anyway, with the trays, like more germination than I'd even thought possible. With the soil blocks, very poor germination. Some of them, one of them I only got 7 seedlings out of 20. So really, really poor. And that's because the blocks were too small because I bought the wrong size, and they just dried out and I didn't manage them properly. So, I mean, if I wanted to persevere with it, there are definitely lessons to be learned. But I just think for the sake of expediency, and because I just want to get it done quickly and know that the results are going to be almost guaranteed, I think the chicken thigh trays are going to be the future. Anyway, they've all come out, the little potted on ones. The disadvantage of the tray, of course, is that the roots do get tangled, whereas in the soil blocks, they tended to stay kind of in their block, I think because the roots self-prune when they get to the air. They're sort of air pruned. Whereas when they're in a tray, they can all mingle and do what they want. So it's a little bit more fiddly to get them out. But anyway, those guys are out, and most of them are outside on the table, sort of hardening off as well. Germination success I've had. So the echinacea have all come up. My first batch of echinacea, and this is a white one that I'm doing this year. I've got 12 of the normal echinacea purpurea on the field already, which were incredible. And I wanted some white ones. So I've sown them. I sowed them on the 3rd of April and they're all up, which is amazing. I've got Cosmos up and Nigella fantastically, because my first batch of Nigella just went in the bin. Not literally, obviously, the compost got recycled, but everything else just got chucked away. That was a disaster. And the Craspedia have germinated, which is amazing. Also doing really well is the Clarkia. Now, the Clarkia was a last-minute panic in the garden centre when I went to get something else, and I went to get all my veg seeds, I think, and I thought, oh, I'll just have a browse. Saw the Clarkia, never heard of it, never grown it before. It looked really pretty, so I bought a packet. And I've germinated it, and the seedlings are really cute. I don't know if you grow this yet, but the seedlings they're almost like variegated. They've almost got this sort of, it's not like a spider's web, but it's got some kind of pattern on the leaves. They're very unique. They're also a very, very pretty shape as well. Some of the first leaves, the seed leaves that come up, are just super boring, but the Clarkia are very pretty. Now, doing very badly, no surprise here, but it's a huge disappointment, is the Larkspur. I've got 3 trays on the go at the moment out there, and 2 of them are doing absolutely nothing, and one of them's got a whole selection of seedlings coming up, and I don't know which ones are the Larkspur, so I need to Google what Larkspur seedlings actually look like to identify the correct seedlings. One of the downsides, I think I've mentioned this before, of using recycled compost is that sometimes there are rogue seeds in there already. And you don't discover that until you germinate anything and they just pop up. So I've got a bit of a mix. I've got about 4 or 5 different types of seedlings in there. And the quirky thing is, just to make things more complicated, is that for every single other tray, pretty much with 1 or 2 exceptions, and I've got a lot of trays in there, no other seeds have germinated whatsoever in the trays. So that's whole thing like, oh, if you use recycled compost, you get all sorts of rubbish coming up. I don't generally find that to be true. But just because the Larkspur is clearly going to be one of those tricky flowers, I've got a whole range of seedlings in that one tray. So yeah, I'm a bit disappointed about the Larkspur. I was very excited about it, and I really thought that was going to be good. Do you know, it's often the way. The things that you get most excited about turn out to be the biggest disappointment because of all that expectations and stuff. And the Clarkia, which I hadn't even heard of, didn't know a thing about it, it's off and it's ready and it's happy. So that's great. A couple of questions from listeners this week that I wanted to answer. I thought you might be interested to hear the answer. So I had a question from Chris saying, I want to grow this year, but I feel like it's too late. Everybody's got started. And the answer to this is it's absolutely not too late. You can 100% go for it. Just be mindful of the fact that you're starting late, so everything is going to arrive late. I wouldn't get too hung up on the whole long day, short day plant things. I have talked about that before, and it's just something that I did for my own information, if you like, just to learn a bit more about what the plants that I'm growing and get a bit more of an understanding of what they like and the conditions that they want. But I wouldn't get too hung up on that if you're just getting started and you just want to go for it. Not everybody starts their seeds in February, and I started mine in March, and loads and loads of people, almost probably everybody else in the whole world, started theirs in autumn. So I was behind the curve anyway. So you're not any more behind the curve than anybody else. So go for it, get started, get them germinated. The weather's perfect. If you're doing this in the UK at the moment, the weather is absolutely spot on. So go for it. The soil's lovely and warm. If you can direct sow, then you could cut out a whole wave of chaos that I'm doing with these trays and potting on and planting and hardening off and all the rest of it. But no, it's definitely not too late. Now, the other question I had, if I could only grow 5 annuals, what would I grow and why? This was a really tough question because, as you know, I decided last year that I was going to focus more on perennials. So I went and bought lots of plugs. I bought some more shrubs, and I really wanted to scale down the annuals because they are so demanding and high maintenance. And I didn't feel like I just thought it was just going to be too much. So I then realized, of course, you can't really do it without annuals. Like, of course you can do it without annuals, but a lot of the showstoppery things that I'm going to sell a lot of this year, hopefully, are annuals. And so I did make a list, and it was supposed to be, I think, 10 or under. And I've ended up with 19 because I've got clearly no willpower when it comes to annual seeds. So I have made things a little bit more complicated than I needed to. But if I only had to choose 5, and thank goodness this is like a fantasy question, and I don't, because it would be impossible to only choose 5, but this would be my top 5. In at number 1 would be Orlia, because they are really nice, quite big seeds actually. They're really easy to see, and I'm really enjoying the fact that I could actually see them when I was sowing them. There's so much to be said for that, because some of them are so tiny. And Orlia make the most beautiful flowers. My wedding event florist loved them last year. I could have sold more and more and more than I actually had. They're very, very pretty. Again, I'll be sowing them in autumn this year. I think August is probably the time I should be doing that. So that will be a completely different mindset. But anyway, you can sow them this year and they will make beautiful flowers, and they will self-seed if they're happy as well. So you could have a crop next year without having to go through too much hoo-ha. Number 2 on my list, scabious. Now, I know I've been quite rude about my scabious because I transplanted them and they've had a crisis, and it's not their fault. But I think scabious are some of the most beautiful annual flowers you can grow. They're just up close. They are so stunning, decent height, very, very pretty. I just love scabious. Number 3, Didiscus. This was a new one for me last year because my wedding and event florist was doing weddings with pops of blue in them, and the Didiscus were just lovely. I loved them as well. They were so pretty. I've clearly got a sort of, you'll probably notice there's these flowers are kind of linked in a way. They look a little bit not similar, but they're of a sort of a type, if you like. If you know Orlia and Didiscus, you'll understand what I'm trying to clumsily say there. In at number 4 was the Cruspedia, my little yellow golf balls on sticks. Again, very popular last year, very easy to grow, absolutely bomb-proof. They just went in the ground and they just did what they had to do. And again, I could have sold more of those than I had. They were just really quirky, and I think that was quite nice in a sea of other stuff, like the Cruspedia really stand out. And the final one would be Panicum. Now, I'm saying this like I've grown it before and I know what I'm doing. I haven't. This is the first year I'm growing it. I grew a couple of grasses last year. I did Breeza Maximus, and the rats ate all of those literally the night that I had spotted that they were ripe and looked really pretty. And I went back the next day and the whole lot had gone. So I'm not doing anything that looks like it could be eaten by anybody ever again. So I've chosen to do Panicum Frosted Explosion, and I chose them last year because I was thinking about going to market and selling directly to customers, which I am having a wobble about, and I'm not sure that I will. But I thought I'll get some and grow them, and they look amazing in little displays, or they could be used for bud vases if they get to a bigger size, they can go in arrangements. They just look super cool. And that would be a foliage that you could use mixed in with the others as well. So that would be my top 5. And the final question that I had, and I can't remember who asked this one, sorry. This says, what items can you never have enough of? And this is a really great question. Number 1 would be string. I get through masses of string. Partly that was last year because I did a lot of make my own netting arrangements and staking arrangements because I wasn't on the ball with the importance of staking. This year I shall be using some proper netting rather than trying to do my own staking. I thought I was doing it on a budget last year, and actually it was a real false economy because the time it took me to faffle around with string. Not worth it at all. But string, super useful for tying everything in, roses, tying all sorts of bits. You can never, in my opinion, have enough string. I get through meters and meters of the stuff. Number 2 would be labels. I buy masses and masses of labels. When I run out, I cut them in half and just try and make the writing smaller. I try and have a stash in stock all the time. Super useful for everything, not just when you're doing seed sowing or potting on, but obviously then when things go out into the field and they get labeled up. Also super useful if you want to make any little reminders that you can just put in for the plants. Sometimes I even tie the labels onto the plants as well if you want to identify anything. And in the winter, I use them to mark where the herbaceous perennials that die back, where they are in the ground so that nobody walks over it. I pretty much know where things are, but if I have any visitors, sometimes I see people's feet like lurching off the paths into things, and I think, oh my goodness, you've just trodden on like half a dozen things. So yeah, labels, very, very useful. I do buy plastic labels and I keep them for years. I use nail varnish remover to clean the black writing off and then rinse them under the tap, dry them, and then they're all good to go. And they last me for years and years and years. Sometimes the ones in the greenhouse, if it's very, very hot, can go a bit brittle. But generally speaking, if I'm gentle with them, they'll last for ages and ages. Number 3 on the list is soft tie. I don't know if you're familiar with this. It's like a string, but it's not. It's again, it's plastic again, but it lasts forever. And you can get various thickness of it. And it's the great thing about it is that it's a piece of wire which is coated in this sort of soft plastic. It's not like a foam, but it's not like a brittle plastic like a cable cord or something like that. And it comes in rolls, and I use that a lot, particularly for roses and delicate shrubs. I don't use it for the annuals or anything like that because it is too stiff for that. But for plants that need that little bit extra support and that are going to be tied in for years, then I would go with the soft tie because I find it really, really helpful. Number 4 is gloves. Funnily enough, gloves are probably the cheapest thing in my toolbox, and I never lose my gloves, which is ironic, but they do wear out. I find that the fingers wear out, and I get mine from Screwfix now because they're super cheap. I did have a recommendation from a listener about a really good waterproof pair, which I'm going to get for the winter. But I just buy these really cheap ones that you can get from, if you're listening outside the UK, Screwfix is like a trade warehouse place where you go and buy, I don't know, radiator fittings and drainage things and man tools and screws and plugs and all sorts of things like that. Very, very useful. And they do a range of clothing for landscapers and builders and stuff, all really robust stuff. 99.9% of it is for men, unfortunately, and they don't really, they have some stuff for ladies. I get my work boots, my steel toe cap boots from Screwfix, but most of it is for gentlemen users. But the gloves are, they're just gloves, and they don't last more than a few months. So I don't like spending a lot of money. I used to years and years ago buy decent gloves, and then it wasn't cost effective to keep doing that. And the final thing would be secateurs. I mean, I have lots of pairs of secateurs on the go. I haven't got my Felcos in action at the moment. I've got an amazing pair of Felcos, which are like my premium secateurs, and then I have the sort of budgety options. The Felcos are blunt. They need to be sent back to Felco. In the UK, Felco do a sort of servicing of your secateurs to keep them going for years and years. And the last time I did it cost about £30. And you send them off and they clean them and polish them and sharpen them, buff them up, and then they post them back to you. And it's well worth doing because Felcos are quite expensive. Mine were a present, and they're something that you don't want to just throw away. Whereas you can get a pair for about £8, in a garden centre, and well, not a garden centre, but B&Q, somewhere really, really cheap. You can get cheap secateurs, and they don't last long. But you can guarantee they'll be the ones that you don't lose. It will be the expensive ones that you lose. I'm actually thinking about putting a Bluetooth, like an Apple tracker, on my Hori Hori knife because I'm just worried that I'm going to lose that again. It's the first time I think I've lost that, and that was, a shock. Anyway, so those are my five items: string, labels, soft tie, gloves, and secateurs. Now, moving on, I have found a couple of podcasts recently, other people's podcasts, that I wanted to share with you. Please don't leave me, but I thought you might find these of interest. Now, the first one is a very, very new one. It's only been going, I think, a fortnight, and it's called Mind Your Business. And it's with Sarah from Dragon's Den in the UK and her sister Helen. And they are amazing. And I've always really liked Sarah. And I got her autobiography out of the library a couple of years ago and read it. And she's got a really interesting story and a very distinct accent, which I love. And when I was reading the book, I could just literally hear her saying out the words. So to hear her voice and her sisters on a podcast is amazing. It's all businessy stuff based on their experiences of running businesses very successfully. And yeah, if you're looking for something a little bit more businessy, then I can highly recommend that. That's called Mind Your Business. The second one I've got for you is a fantastic perimenopause one called Is It Hot in Here with Dr. Naomi Potter. And I love this. I listen to it every single week. I think I've done all the back episodes as well. Dr. Naomi does a mixture of sort of short ones, 7 or 8 minutes long, where she just discusses something. And then she has interviews with people where they talk about their experiences. And I think the interviews are absolutely incredible, because listening to what other women have gone through is absolutely eye-opening. And if you are someone that is experiencing perimenopause, or you're even out the other side and you don't want to hear about all of this stuff anymore, but if you're sort of in the massive ramp that is perimenopause, with all the symptoms and all the challenges that go with it, it can be really nice just to listen to a podcast with other women talking about what they've gone through, so you won't feel like it's just you. And there is always some helpful solutions and stuff on there. So I think the more advice that we can get and the more experiences that we can listen to from other people, I happen to think all the better, because we're not alone in this. We're all going through it to one degree or another. And the third one is my all-time favourite. Nobody's ever going to replace this one, I'm afraid. This is the 6-Figure Flower Farming by Jenny Marks. I did Jenny Marks's Flower Farming for Business course in December last year, and it was absolutely amazing, totally life-changing. And I listen to Jenny. She drops an episode every Monday. They're absolutely brilliant. I listen to them on repeat. I download them. I've done the whole back catalogue, and I cannot recommend Jenny highly enough. She is incredible. Now, a couple of books I'm reading at the moment. Well, in fact, just one to recommend. I'm rereading The Lean Farm. I think I've recommended this to you before. It's by Ben Hartman. It's really good. It's all about efficiencies on the farm. And I keep rereading it to remind myself of things I should be doing on the field, like making sure there are tools in the shed near where I'm working, so that I don't have to keep going back to my car or back to the feed room. Making sure that that I don't walk a circuitous route, that things are very direct, that I'm optimizing things, that if I'm going from A to B and back to C, I'll carry something on the way. It's like, you don't walk anywhere empty-handed. And it's just a really, really helpful book. So I do recommend that one very highly. And I have also ordered Atomic Habits from the library. I love ordering books from the library. It costs £1 to get them, because if they don't have it in my library, they have to order it from another library in my county. And they charge you £1 for that, but it's an awful lot cheaper than getting anything online. So I've ordered Atomic Habits. That was recommended to me by Emily from Trademark Farming. And she recommended that I read the book, because she thought it would be helpful. So I have ordered it, and I'm just waiting for it to come. Also, just on a side note, have you seen Wuthering Heights yet? Oh my goodness. I'm literally not looking at any of the eggs the chickens lay in the same way ever again. I don't know whether I can recommend it to you. It depends entirely on your disposition, but it's an interesting film. Now, final bit of today is the plant profile of the week. And this week I'm talking about Helianthus Lemon Queen. This is the perennial sunflower, not the annual type. So it's the perennial sunflower. It's from North America. It's a prairie type of plant, really nice and tall, up to about 2 meters tall. Mine's about 5.5 feet tall. Very branching, quite a big sort of shrubby thing, nice stiff stems. And I don't unfortunately remember where mine came from. So it's perfect for growers, because you get a lot of plants. Now, it's got lots of branches, it's got multiple stems, you get lots of flowers. It's just big. There's just a lot of volume in it. It takes up a lot of space. It's a perennial, so you can just plant it once and pretty much forget about it. You can divide it for more free plants in the future. It flowers late summer into autumn, and it's tough. It's one of these tough plants. I wish now I could remember where I'd got it from. It's not fussy, but it's not going to want a rich soil. It's quite happy in my soil. I mean, I say that my soil is quite rich because of all the chicken poop that's on it, but it seems to be fine. It just doesn't want to be fussed over. It doesn't need feeding, and it doesn't need anything else. And it's drought tolerant. I don't ever water mine. It just does its own thing. I sold a bit of it last year. It's not in like the top 10 of my list, but I did sell it. It's got beautiful pale lemon yellow coloured flowers, not horrible battery acid bright acid yellowy colours. It's just really, really subtle and lovely. Very, very pretty, light and airy. And I think it's good value for the florist because it takes up a lot of space. You get a lot of bang for your buck. But the only downside, it's not like super long lasting. It's not like a chrysanthemum that's just going to last forever and ever. But for wedding florists, not as important. Now, growing it's got to be in full sun. Mine gets the sun from lunchtime until it sets, and it seems to be very happy with that. The advice is don't let it get blown around because it is a tall plant, and although the stems are stiff, you risk having some damage if it gets blown around or you get root rot and it can't settle into its space. But I mean, I do not stake mine. It just powers on through. It does need a well-drained soil, which it definitely got with mine. All the water's literally draining right down the slope. And it's not, I suppose, going to work for really high-end fancy pants weddings because it's not, it's not a posh flower, but it would be perfect for sort of meadow-style weddings, I guess. I love mine, absolutely love it. And I might try dividing it at the end of this year and get some more plants out of it. So I highly recommend you get one if you don't have one already. So that's me for today. I wish you a very warm and sunny and relaxing and productive weekend. And I very much hope that you'll come back and join me next Tuesday for the next episode. So all the very best.